Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the most obvious, straightforward solution to a problem actually ends up making things worse? Well, today we're diving into something called systems thinking. It's this powerful way of seeing the hidden connections that drive everything, from why our cities get gridlocked to how a whole country can learn to live with water.
For generations, really, our approach to big, messy problems has been pretty much the same. Find the symptom and hit it with a hammer. You got a river that floods, build a higher wall. Traffic's a nightmare, we'll just build a bigger road. It's a very direct A to B way of thinking. But here's the catch. That direct approach, it often backfires. It completely ignores all the complex, tangled connections that created the problem in the first place. And sometimes, that can lead to even bigger disasters down the road. To really see a different way, let's start with our first puzzle. We're heading to the Netherlands, a country whose entire identity is wrapped up in its constant dance with water.
This is the moment the old way of thinking broke. In the mid-90s, the rivers rose so high that the Netherlands had to evacuate 250,000 people. Their whole system of dikes, built over centuries, was pushed to the absolute brink. It was a terrifying wake-up call that something fundamental had to change.
So this crisis, it forced the entire country to stop and rethink everything. They realized that their strategy of fighting the water, a strategy that had defined them for almost 1,000 years, just wasn't going to work anymore. They needed a whole new playbook. And this quote just nails the radical shift they made. Instead of building up, these vertical defenses like higher and higher walls, they decided to expand out. They made a conscious choice to stop fighting the river and start working with it, to give it space. And this wasn't just one simple fix, it was this whole portfolio of brilliant ideas. They literally moved dikes further inland to give the river its natural floodplain back. They dug out land to create more room for water to go during a flood. In some areas, they even carved out brand new channels to act like pressure release valves and took out old obstacles. They gave the river room to breathe. All right, now for our second puzzle. We're going to jump from the lowlands of Europe all the way to South America. The question here is, how do you deal with explosive city growth without getting trapped in the gridlock and pollution that we see everywhere? So back in the 1970s, the Brazilian city of Curitiba was at this critical crossroads. The leaders, especially the mayor, an architect named Jaime Lerner, they looked at what was happening in other big cities, the car-dominated sprawl of a place like Los Angeles, and they said, nope, not for us. We're going to do the exact opposite. And the logic behind their big move was beautifully simple. I mean, just look at this. When you think about the amount of road space you need to move the same number of people, cars are just incredibly inefficient. Buses, on the other hand, use a tiny, tiny fraction of that space. They realized the goal wasn't to move cars, it was to move people. And the result of that one simple, powerful insight, by the early 90s, a mind-blowing 70% of commuters in Korea were using public transit every single day. The city completely sidestepped the gridlock nightmare, slashed its pollution, and became this global icon for quality of life. Now, they pulled this off with a system that was just brilliantly designed. It wasn't just buses. It was a whole integrated network. You had these huge, fast buses on their own dedicated express lanes, kind of like a subway on wheels. Then, feeder buses would bring people from neighborhoods to those main lines. And smaller, local buses solved that crucial first-mile, last-mile problem, making sure the system was easy for everyone to use.
Okay, so let's just pause here for a second. We've got two completely different problems, right? Flooding in a rich European nation and urban growth in a South American city. Both were solved with these really creative, almost counterintuitive solutions. So what's the connection?
The real link here, it has nothing to do with buses or with floodplains. The secret thread that connects these two incredible success stories isn't what they did. It's how they thought about the problem in the first place.
And that how has a name. It's called systems thinking. Instead of just focusing on the individual isolated parts, like one dike or one road, they stepped back and looked at the entire system, the whole river basin, the whole urban environment.
They paid attention to the relationships, the connections, and the patterns.
So linear thinking tries to control the pieces. But systems thinking is all about understanding and influencing the whole system. It's this massive shift from fighting against how a system works to working with it, to find these really elegant, powerful solutions that thinkers call leverage points. So, okay, how does this actually work in the real world? Let's break down the core principles of systems thinking and see exactly how they played out in our two stories. First up, the principle of leverage points. This is the idea that a small, smart change in just the right place can trigger a huge change across the entire system. Curitiba's leaders knew their bus system wasn't just about buses. No, it was the strategic intervention that would shape how the city grew, boost the economy, and make life better for everyone. That's a leverage point. The second principle is all about understanding feedback loops, and Curitiba had this genius one. They let people in poorer neighborhoods trade their recyclable trash for bus tickets or even food. This created this amazing self-reinforcing cycle. It cleaned up the city, it helped people out, and it boosted use of the transit system. It's a win-win-win. And that brings us to the most powerful leverage point of them all, a paradigm shift. This is when you change the deepest beliefs and goals of a system. For centuries, the Dutch paradigm was man versus water. The Room for the River program completely flipped that on its head. It became man and water. And by changing that core belief, they opened up a whole new world of solutions. So, what can we all take away from this? Well, systems thinking really teaches us that everything is connected. It pushes us to look beyond the single flashy event and search for the deeper patterns underneath. It shows that small, well-placed changes can have absolutely massive impacts. But maybe most importantly, it reminds us that the biggest change we can make is often just to change the way we see.
This way of thinking, it's not just for engineers or city planners. It's a powerful tool that any of us can use. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's a complex system that you're a part of? At your job, in your neighborhood, in your own life? And where are your leverage points? Thanks for watching.